Are you happy? Are you deep down satisfied with the person you are, how you're living your life, and the future as it appears today? Do you have a passion? Is there any one thing in your life that is so important that it makes prioritizing everything else simple? If the answer to any of those questions is no, do you have any idea why? Welcome to the Veramore Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Keegan, co-founder of the dating app Veramore and the nonprofit app Hero Harbor. Happiness, mine and that of others, is something that's always been very important to me. I've devoted my life to understanding how we take the things life throws at us and combine that with our own special gifts to come away with an experience that, while not always perfect, is one we are proud of and allows us the fewest regrets and least amount of heartache. Whether through my personal musings or conversations with guests, the aim here is not to find a one-size-fits-all to-do list of change, but instead a mindset that lessens our fear, reduces judgment of ourselves and others, and frees each individual to build the life that truly represents happiness for them. Thank you for joining us on the Veramore Speaks podcast. I've always worked to provide the most honest, helpful content I could in forms that reach the largest possible audience. And my extreme dislike of greed-driven organizations means I do so without ads or sponsors. But for us to continue improving with better guests and more consistent production quality, we need your help. If you have found any value in what we do and the content provided, please show us a little love by making a contribution directly to the podcast or as a tax-deductible donation on the heroharbor.org website. Thank you again for listening, and please enjoy the show.
Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls.
Welcome. Today we are speaking with Adam T. Cummings, who is the current producer and host of his very own podcast, Vetting America, which is designed to tell the stories of veteran entrepreneurs while highlighting the organizations and resources they are part of in the veteran space. He is a recent graduate of the University of Tampa and as of last September has begun his own entrepreneurial journey towards creating a life that is completely his own. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you, Dawn. How are you?
Fabulous. Okay, so a couple things. We need to state, too, that Adam is a Marine veteran, E5 Sergeant, hoorah.
Rah.
That's something I want to talk to you about later, the difference between old Corps and new Corps, and millennial versus whatever you want to call it.
We don't have time. We don't have time for the ooh anymore. We got to go raw. We're too busy. We're too busy.
Change it to text speak. Anyway, okay. So, Adam, if you would do me a favor and wait, I told you I was going to tell you give you a little bit of something to smile about. I decided I was going to do a few weeks ago. It was just time to start this podcast, and nothing has been ideal since. So, nope. Unlike your beautiful space you have there in Tampa for recording live or recording video and such, I am sitting here in a dungy hotel room with because they're doing construction as well as people screaming around and there's no carpet. Anyway, I'm sitting here with a soundproofing curtain draped over me and draped over my computer. So I'm in a little tent, kind of like a little hooch.
I'm picturing it.
It's black. It's funny as crap. So anyway, that's our experience. That's, I don't know where you are, but yeah, I'm comfy and probably going to be sweating here before long. So, all right, now that we've set that imagery for everyone, tell us about first how you ended up joining the Marine Corps, how you chose the Corps, or maybe the Corps chose you. Tell us about your time in the Corps, and then how all that led to what you're doing now. Welcome. I don't know if I said welcome, but welcome.
You did. All right. Yeah. Okay. Basically, the Corps was in my blood from the time I was born. My dad was a Marine. I grew up with all the stories. I grew up being instilled with the same ethos, honor, courage, commitment, integrity, helping others, putting others before yourself, giving everything that it is to be a Marine, I was raised to be. And I guess that having older parents, my mom was 35 when she had me, my dad was 32. I was always an old soul. So I never really felt like I belonged anywhere as a kid. I always kind of felt like an outcast, even though I call myself a social chameleon because I can adapt to any social situation and inevitably be able to participate in it. But like I said, I could be in a room full of people and feel completely alone. And so as I was growing up, I was always intrigued by the Marine Corps, but I always thought I was kind of like a wuss, and I never thought that I'd be strong enough to really do it. After high school, I started really floundering. I've always needed structure, and I've always needed some sort of a routine. And when college came and it gave you all that freedom, it also, gave you all that time to F off in a way. Mm-hmm. So I started drinking a lot. Though I was going to school full time, I was working full time, I was partying full time. I was smoking a lot of weed, I was drinking a lot. I was, and it was great the first 6 months. You graduate high school, it's fun, it's this and that. But then life really hits you. The 2008 financial disaster happened. But before that, I ended up getting underage drinking when my best friend got a DUI, and that kind of really opened my eyes. I think I was like September of 2007. I had just graduated high school about 4 or 5 months before that, and I had already gotten in trouble. I never gotten in trouble my entire life. I was always a good kid, always did what I was told, always got good grades, everything like that. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm an adult now and it actually matters. Okay, let's get in trouble. This is a good time to do it. And so that was my first run-in with the law. And then about 3 months later, I got in trouble again. And at that point, my parents were pretty disappointed. The financial disaster happened. And basically our money ran up, my positive karma ran out, and I had to put myself through school, which meant no longer going to a 4-year university, which was the goal. It was now 13th grade, or what I call a community college back then. Just felt like I was in 13th grade. It was high school over again, and it felt like I had gone backwards. And I started to really, really flounder at this point. I ended up getting a job at Walgreens Distribution Center at about 19, which was pretty incredible because I was working alongside people that were accountants. I was working beside people that used to make $100,000 a year. But then, everything happened, everything fell apart, and people lost everything. And now they're making $15 an hour, working 10 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, driving forklifts and moving boxes. It was a very rough time for everyone. There's a lot of camaraderie in our team, but the allure of making that much more money, I was making $15 an hour, at 18 years old, 19 years old, which was pretty good, especially in 2008. But that incentive kind of wore off real quickly. And I realized, I was like, is this it? I mean, is this going to be my future? And I started panicking, and I started getting really depressed, and I started getting really anxious. And this would be around the first time I really started entering a rabbit hole where I just felt like a vortex of mediocrity was overcoming me, and I thought I would never make it out. One night, after just a lot of stress, a lot of BS, we had just moved into an apartment. So we lived in this really nice house growing up. It was my family home. It was my childhood home. I loved it. It was my parents' dream home. They built it. And then they lost it, in just a matter like that. Within 1 month, they both lost their jobs. And then within, 3 or 4 months after that, they went bankrupt, lost the house, lost everything. And then we had to move into like an apartment that was like a 2-bedroom apartment in like the not so good part of town, and going from like a really nice house to this, like, it was like, bottom of the barrel. And it just felt like everything was falling apart around me. I was stagnating. I wasn't motivated anymore. I must have changed my major like 3 or 4 or 5 times. And so one night I was by myself in the apartment before my parents had moved in because they were getting everything ready at the house. And I drank a bottle of vodka to my face, locked the door, or braced the door with a chair, went to the kitchen sink and took a steak knife to my wrist. I'm a wuss, so like I don't like pain at all, and I don't like blood, so I didn't even draw blood. But the fact is that I was even willing to get to that point. And It had all started with thoughts of like, I'd be driving my car down this like really tiny road, this back road I would take to Walgreens Distribution Center in Easton, Pennsylvania. I'd take this one road, and it was really windy and beautiful, but it was really tiny. And there was always tractor trailers that I would take it to cut through, which they weren't supposed to, but they did it anyway. And I always asked myself, I was like, what would happen if I turned the wheel of my car into this truck? And so that night in my apartment building, when I did that to myself, instantly sobered me up. And I said, what the fuck am I doing? Excuse my language. I was just like, I freaked out. I was a happy kid. I don't hurt myself. I don't hurt people. And for me to get to that point, to even think that was something that could be an option, scared the living daylights out of me. And so the next day I go back to my house and I start talking to my mom, and I'm like, hey, Mom, I just did this last night. I did this thing and I'm not very proud of it, but this is where I'm at. And this, I'm really scared right now. And he goes, Adam, I've waited to tell you this, but this is the time. Is I don't know who you are anymore, and I don't like the person you've become. You're bitter. You're upset all the time. You're depressed. You're not the person that I know you to be. She goes, I think it's time you join the Marine Corps. And I literally stopped me in my tracks, because when I graduated high school, she was completely against it. My buddy Andrew Clinton was trying to recruit me into the Army. When we were 17, we had calculus together, and every morning he'd come in after a PT session and go, man, I love the Army, blah, this, that. And I'm like, I'm not going in the Army. I'm not going in the military, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to college, Well, that didn't last very long. So we're sitting there in my kitchen, and she's just like, there's something I haven't told you. She goes, when you were born, I saw you in dress blues. She's very intuitive, my mother, mm-hmm. and she's always been able to kind of see things before they happen. And especially with me, we were just very connected that way. And like growing up, she would know I was going to go do something bad before I even knew it, or before I would even tell her. She would just by my energy, she knew what was going to happen. Like if I was going to go drinking that night, or if I was going to go do something dumb, basically. She's like, yeah, but before I saw you in that pinstripe suit when you were first born, I saw you in Marine Corps blues. And she had never told me that she saw me being a Marine, but she always kind of knew it was going to happen, but she was always trying to not have it happen.
Right.
Because in
and not influence either.
Well, yeah, because the thing is in 2007, the fighting was still pretty rough down, right. Over in Iraq and Afghanistan. So she really didn't want me to go. She didn't want me to risk it. But by 2009, Obama was in office. He was talking about bringing troops home and stuff. And she felt like that it was a good time. Her and my dad sat down, talked about it, and that's when she was waiting for the time to tell me that. Serendipitously, the next day I go to school, and I parked my car. It's about February. It's cold as shit. I hate the cold, and that was like a big reason. So beyond not having purpose and kind of floundering, I get seasonal depression up north. When I lived there for 20 years, mm-hmm. I get seasonal depression just because of like shorter days, not enough sunlight, it's cold, right. So I was having, it was the worst one I ever experienced. And so I'm walking through the parking lot, school, freezing, whipping wind. And all of a sudden I see this Marine get out of his car, and he's in dress blues. And he at the time I thought he was like, he was a PFC. He had just graduated boot camp. And I walk up. It doesn't matter
the rank. You see that uniform?
Yeah, I saw that uniform. I was just
all
like,
reason falls away.
Yeah, absolutely. I walk up to him and I'm like, hey man, can I talk to you about the Marine Corps a bit? About your experience? He's like, yeah, absolutely, man. Let's go grab something, a drink or something. So we go into the school. I'm talking to him. He's getting me pumped up. And I asked him if he could take me to his recruiter. And he said, absolutely, because he was on our RA anyway, and that was his job. That's why he was at that school that day. The next day, I went to a recruiting station an hour away in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I didn't even go to the local recruiting station because I heard it wasn't that great. The one that was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, I heard that the recruiters are kind of shady. They were kind of like taking advantage of people. He told me that his recruiter was a straight shooter, told him exactly what it was about. So the next day, I go with him to his recruiting station in Washington, New Jersey. And I still remembered his name. It was Staff Sergeant Horrigan. The guy was like 29 years old staff sergeant with like 8 kids already. It was crazy, From the moment I walked in there, he goes, so why are you here today? And I said, I want to be a Marine. And he goes, okay, yeah, I get that. But like, why else are you here? I said, there is no other reason. The only thing I want right now is I want to be a United States Marine. That's it. And from that moment forward, I worked my butt off. I was heavy too. So I was overweight at the time. And I had to like really work over the next 3 months to lose the weight to be able to get into boot camp. Fast forward 3 months later, and I'm on those yellow footprints outside Parris Island, freaking out. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I said to myself, I just calmed myself, nut the butt with everybody. You can smell everybody's sweat. You've been on the bus for 5 hours. It's 2:00 in the morning. I had to fly from Pennsylvania to South Carolina, then take that bus. I was just all over the place. I was freaking out. I was like, what am I doing? What did I do? Why did I do this to myself? And basically, I just said, you know what, Adam? This is what you chose. This is the right path for you. You're going to hit the ground running and you're never going to look back. And I can say to this day, I've made that promise to myself that I've never broken. And that's what kind of led me to this point. And this conversation was that fateful night where I decided to do something dumb, but it was so dumb that it woke me up to everything. So in the end, It was great.
So I want to interject just a little bit here. A couple of things that resonated with me as you were speaking. You talked about how despite partying and the grade, you were maintaining your life while at the same time your life was falling apart. that overachieving thing it's a large, I would almost make a bet, and I'm not a betting woman, I would almost make a bet that the largest percentage, maybe 90% or more of Marines that have ever gone through, and especially the best ones. I know that I think I mentioned when we spoke before that I had interviewed a Medal of Honor recipient at the age of 17, but he was that kind of person. He was he loved the Corps, but he was rowdy. He was over the top. He would go AWOL. He'd get in fights, things like that. I think it's that overachieving nature that the go all in, whether it be good or bad, go all in on everything. It's kind of a core aspect. I never knew any Marines. When I joined the Marine Corps, I didn't even think they took women because I dropped, unlike your mother who had her son late, I was barely 16 when mine was born. So I didn't know anything about the Corps. I just went in and said, I'm joining the military, and who will give me the job I want. But it's as learning about Marines while I was in, and then since then, that push, especially, and not everyone is like that, but those of us who really, I think it's just, that's part of being a Marine. Somebody posted, a Marine friend of mine posted some time ago, he said, it just a meme, it said, it's not a competition, we're all crazy here. And it really is true.
And that's a big part, like, I like to think is you have to be crazy to join the Marine Corps. Like, you have to be a little crazy.
It's a positive crazy.
Yeah, it's a positive crazy. Well, at the time, usually most people's lives, it's not a positive crazy. And what it is that
it needs to be channeled, but it is a good
channels that. And that's the thing, is like, we talk about I'm an excessive person. I always have been. I'm all in or not at all. I don't know how else to be. Right. I'm learning how to find pace, and I'm learning how to find balance now at 29. But it's been 28 years of pure soul searching to figure out why I am the way I am, instead of just accepting who I am and being able to run with it. I've always been very judgy of myself.
Right. Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And so in the Marine Corps, I finally found a situation where, being the smartest was praised, or being the fastest, being the strongest, being the toughest, being the best version of yourself was not only accepted, but it was mandatory.
Right.
And I felt like, in high school and school, like the dumb kids were the cool kids. Mm-hmm. The pieces of shit were the cool kids. And I'm like, why are you cool? You don't even know how to speak. You don't even know how to write. You have no skill sets. You bring no value to people's lives, and yet you're cool and you're popular. I was like, I never understood that. It always felt like society was kind of like backwards.
Lowest common denominator. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I joined the Marine Corps, and I was like, you mean to tell me that I could be completely intense, get in people's faces, be aggressive, and it's actually promoted? Well, I found my place. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere.
But and there's a misunderstanding, I think, about the Marine Corps, and I've discovered this in interviews that I've done with civilians. Yes, you had all of that, and you're right, it was encouraged and praised and such. But the other thing the Marine Corps teaches you is temperance, in the sense that, yes, you can't have all this power and this knowledge and all that. It doesn't mean you have to, again, you use your powers for good rather than evil. There's a misconception that, because we're so intense and such that we can't function within society, but that's not true. It actually makes us better as civilians, but we find it a challenge sometimes to make that transition, help you learn to. Now, I had no balance, and a couple of real quick stories. So while I was I started bodybuilding, powerlifting. I was always athletic, but I got to the point I was deadlifting 315 for reps. Now, I don't know many men who do that, much less women. However, when I got out, again, athletic all my life. At one point, I got to nearly almost 300 pounds on my 5'4" frame. So again, all in, no good or bad, no matter what you do, you just kind of, but those experiences allow you to help others too. But anyway, okay, so keep going.
Oh, so yeah, and just another thing about the Marine Corps too is everyone thinks, and it took me a while to really understand it, but everybody equates kindness to good, and intensity or even kind of being mean to bad. And generally it's true. But if you think about the way boot camp is designed, it's designed to completely break you down, completely deprogram and reprogram you, and that. And it makes it seem like they're mean, right? It makes it seem like they hate you, that you're a piece of crap, that you're nothing, that you're this and that. But if you really look at everything we're taught, everything we're trained at. It's all there to help us grow. It's all there to help save our lives in combat. It's all there to help us save other people's lives in combat.
Right.
So in reality, on the
Yeah.
surface, it's mean. On the surface, it's angry. On the surface, it's bitter. On the surface, it's all this. But deep down in the core of what everything it is to be a Marine, it's all about becoming 1% better every single day.
Right.
And I've taken that and I've adopted that to everything I do in my life. Like I said, I'm excessive. So if I'm not doing, like we were just talking about before, if I'm not working, 18-hour days every single day, I feel like I'm not doing enough.
Right.
And that idea of comparison to other people and the amount of time you put in, the Marine Corps teaches us, and especially the military, but specifically the Marine Corps teaches you how to be efficient and effective. And we've always been in the kind of that branch that takes a 4-hour job and does it in one, because we don't want to work for 4 hours.
Right.
We want to work for 1 hour and then mess off for 3 hours, And so it's kind of like I take that mentality too. And we were talking about it again before this interview is I sprint. And then all of a sudden, like I'm good for one day and I'll crush it and I'll be sprinting 100 miles an hour. And then the next day I can't even get out of bed because I'm so exhausted. And so it's like, is that effective? Maybe, maybe not. Is it my way? It's my way. Do I want to change it? Yeah, I would like to change it because I want to be more consistent. I kind of want to have more pace. I want a better work-life balance. But at the end of the day, I'm still going exactly where I need to go on the time frame that I need to do it. And it's kind of like I'm always battling myself. I'm always like battling destiny in a way. And that's kind of something that I'm working on right now in my life, is just figuring out how to just accept myself for the way I am and not compare myself to others in the way that they run their paths.
That's huge, because you're very, all that intensity. And again, like you were talking about with stupid people, or that they don't even have to be intellectually stupid, but just willfully ignorant is the way I term it. But how they, they are the cool ones, society, again, we kind of go to the lowest common denominator. And so most people don't know how to handle people like you and I, that the high intensity, just on the go all the time. And we are looked at as the aberration, as the freaks. But in a lot of times, part of it is sometimes people would rather be more like us, but they don't know. It's again, figuring out who you are, and accepting the good and the bad, because there is good and bad in either of those lifestyles. The matter of, what are your gifts and what are you, how do you use them? But okay, so what did you do for the Marine Corps?
So I was a 6092 airframes mechanic. So I worked on flight surfaces and landing gear of fighter jets, of F-18s.
Wow.
And then in Afghanistan, I worked on CH-53s, Hueys, Cobras, and V-22s.
My dad did something similar while he was in Vietnam. And to me, I hear that. I am so thankful for people like you and like my father, because I imagine those planes aren't working properly. I mean, look at how, they're so important to us. And if those, so I am very thankful. That is something I could not and would not want to do, but I'm very thankful for the men and women who do that stuff. So
that's a big thing I like about the Marine Corps and the military in general, is that every single person's job is imperative to the mission.
Absolutely.
And that's really big for military people to understand that when they're in, because we have these inter branch competitions, and then you have pogues, not pogues, person other than grunts, person not other than grunts, and this and that, and so I'm an air winger, and air wingers notoriously have a bad rep. You know what I mean? Yeah. But and given we're turds in comparison to the rest of the Corps, because we have quote unquote it easy.
Right.
Well, maybe the Marine mentality is a little easy, but working 17-hour days in the rear, nonstop aircrafts, nonstop turnovers, nonstop inspections, nonstop. You know how many Marines kill themselves one way or another that work in the air wing, because it's either they actually kill themselves, or they take so much caffeine and so much supplements that they overdose on the flight line. There's
a reason that it's made easier for you guys. When I say guys, I mean men and women, whoever, because your job, you have to be on top of things, again, because you have to be good at making those planes work properly and this and that. So there's a lot of stress related to the actual job. Therefore, the rest of us, like I was stationed at Parris Island for my first 2 years. My life was night and day from the air wingers at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort, because we had to be on point, as my son always says, for the recruits and things like that, for people who came to visit. We had to look good. I mean, we starched our daggum uniforms, stuff that you would never do.
Air Wing would never do that.
Oh my gosh. But it's because, my job was not, life was at stake if I failed to write an article properly, or if I failed to do an interview properly. Lives are at stake for you. And so therefore people they can't be worrying about their uniforms and whether their boots are shiny like that. So there's a really good reason for that.
Yeah, that's exactly what they explained it is like you said, is you don't want, which they say you don't want to stress out the air wingers too much, because then they don't do their jobs right and people die.
Right.
Well, it's true, but it's not how it works, because it does. If you think that there's, all it is stress, and then they play what we call fuck games on top of it. Mm-hmm. So, you have a 17-hour day where 12 hours of it you're working and the other 5 you're playing games. So it's just
that's part of the Marine Corps.
It's part of the Marine Corps. Yeah, it is what it is,
All right. Tell me then, when you got out, tell me about Vetting America, and tell me what led to that and what your ultimate goal is with that.
I decided to get out of the Marine Corps for two major reasons. First reason was that I had gotten the green weenie so many times. I was tired of being effed over for how hard I was working and a little bit of money I was making. I was promised a bunch of things. A lot of things weren't delivered on. That's fine. But I had worked, 4 years. I had dedicated myself, picked up sergeant in 4 years. I was running a $25 million aircraft shop at 23 years old. I had all the credentials, all the certifications I needed, everything and I was ready to go get this new job, this new MOS. It's called non-destructive inspection. And what it is basically you use a bunch of different technologies to pretty much check the structural integrity of aircraft, so that you can see if there's any cracked parts that are within the jet, but you can't cut a aileron or a trailing edge flap, which are the wing controls. You can't cut them in half to see if there's damage. So you have to use eddy current inspection. You have to use sonograms. You have to use X-rays. You have to use all this technology to look inside of it without damaging it.
Right.
And I was really excited to go. It's a 3-month course in Pensacola. You get to go down there. You live like a king. Outside the Marine Corps, you're guaranteed between a $60,000 to $100,000 a year job just to start. I mean, this is big for oil companies to check the oil pipelines. My gunny now works for Disneyland out in California, and all he does is ride roller coasters all night, because he does he does these inspections on the roller coaster, because it's all metal, stuff like that, structural integrity. So I had been slated for the school, and I was on leave, and they call me and they're like, "Hey, there's no one else with your certifications and credentials in the entire squadron, so we're taking you off NDI school, and we're going to put you into the desert for 6 months."
Right.
And I was like, oh. So I go into the desert for 6 months. I go to Kuwait and Bahrain. And basically, at that point, I was already done. And then they stuck me in the desert. And it was just kind of like a support role. We were there to it was more of like a supply deployment to VFW. I forget who we went with. The Black Knights. We went to Black Knights. I forget their squadron. I think it was 315 or something. And so back in Miramar, we had 110 jets that we would service. So there was always constant work. Out here, there was only one squadron of 12 jets, and we're in the desert in tents. There's not going to be a lot of capabilities for airframers out there, specifically because we don't have welders out there, so you can't weld, you can't machine, you barely can metal fab. I think I did 1 repair the whole time I was out there, and obviously you're not going to do advanced composites like Kevlar and carbon fiber, because you need really clean rooms to do that. And so I sat out there in the desert for doing nothing for 6 months, and they had taken my dream away too. So I was just super bitter.
Right.
At that point, I just started studying the whole time I was out there. I just was studying. I got really into fitness. I've always been into fitness, but I got really into it. I started researching the science behind it, and I thought I was going to get out and start and open a gym. So I get out of the Marine Corps with the intention of being an entrepreneur, and I started a business with my buddy. It was a drop shipping site, e-commerce website. So basically what we wanted to do was we wanted to take fitness brands that were smaller, and through using web development, SEO, and digital marketing, when it at its, this was back in 2014, so it wasn't as big as it was then. We were going to use that to kind of help these smaller brands get into a larger target audience. One thing happened after another. My partner, he ended up starting a new job. I ended up starting school at the University of Tampa, and we just kind of fell off. So that was my first kind of venture into entrepreneurship, and I loved it. But as I was going through school, I realized that I realized I really wanted to do corporate America for like 5 years and get some experience, and then I was going to go out and do the whole entrepreneurial thing. I lost faith in myself in that aspect that I could do it at that point. I worked my butt off in school. Again, all excessive, all in. I got a 4-year degree in 2.5 years. I pulled 100 credits the first 2 years, and my last 2 semesters were just like, one semester was 3 credits or 3 classes, and my last semester was 2 classes. But I had picked up tax accounting internships. And so I had done my final semester in school, which was it started January of 2017. I started my first internship at PricewaterhouseCoopers. I learned a lot in that time. It was during busy season. I was going to school, and what I learned in that time was that it was exactly what I didn't want to do. Tax accounting and me are not.
Yeah, I can't
really,
picture that. No.
Yeah, most people say that too, and I was like, I don't know what, because I like busy work, but I need like 4 hours of busy work and 4 hours of talking to people, and all it is you're just sitting in front of a screen clicking away all the time. Right. And I was just like, yeah, I don't like this. And I had thought at the time that maybe it was just because it was one of the big four, and it was just like, PricewaterhouseCoopers has 155,000 employees, right. And so like you're just a number. And I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, and I had just gotten done being a number, and I didn't want to be another one. I landed another tax accounting internship with a regional firm, Clifton Larson Allen, out of downtown Tampa. And I was like, okay, so maybe it's just the firm. Maybe it was just like the culture. Maybe I wanted something different. And within 2 weeks of starting that internship, I realized I absolutely hate this. And at that point, the reason I got out of the Marine Corps was because I was a sergeant, and I knew I didn't want to pick up staff sergeant, because as soon as you pick up staff sergeant, it's all politics and games. Right. I really didn't want to play them. And even when I was doing my accounting internship, I knew I didn't even want to be an associate. I was an intern. I didn't even want to rank up. I didn't even want to go to associate. So I was like, well, this isn't working. And basically I started, so as the internship was coming towards a close, I started interviewing for different types of accounting positions, staff accountant, bookkeeper, all this other stuff. I even tried to get into one of the clearinghouses, DTCC out of Tampa, be a business analyst. I was actually really excited about that position, but it just didn't work out. So as I'm doing these interviews, as I'm putting out my resume, after I'm doing all this, I'm just getting more and more and more depressed, more and more and more anxious. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know left from down and right from up. And I just knew that I had just worked 10 years towards this, right? Like 8 years, basically. I worked 8 years towards this goal. And all of a sudden I wake up one day last summer and I didn't even want to live anymore. And I had found myself exactly how I felt and was that night that I drank a bottle of vodka to my face, right, and put that chair against that door. So that scared me so much, because I said to myself, I just worked nearly a decade to be right back where I freaking started. Right. And I said, well, last time I was here, I leapt. So I guess this time I'm going to have to leap. So I was in a part of this Facebook group called Band of Bravos. There's like 90,000 people in it. And one of these conversations we were having was on PTSD. And as I'm reading through the comments and I'm reading through what everybody's talking about, nobody really had a definition of PTSD. Everybody's definition was different. Everybody's opinion was different. And I was like, there's so much stuff out there talking about PTSD, PTS now it's called. They talk about all these things, but not a single person in this had a concise definition of what it was, and it was all very kind of subjective. Right. And I said to myself, I can't be the only veteran feeling the way I'm feeling right now. I can't be the only veteran that's going through these manic depressive episodes. I can't be the only veteran that's going through this anxiety. And as I was reading those comments, I was seeing how many other veterans were going through the same thing. And the way I looked at it too was, I go, all right, Adam, you're not happy. You're on a wrong path. And I was starting to get annoyed with myself because I was being so negative and pessimistic, and I worked so hard not to be. Like I've worked, naturally speaking, I'm a negative, pessimistic person, AKA Marine. It's the same thing. And so from that point, I said, then what is it that I want to do? Like, stop complaining. What is it that you actually want to do? And I broke it down as simple as possible. And every time I go on vacation, I'm just in like a different vibration. I'm in a good mood. I live in the moment. my phone's away. I'm never on my phone when I'm on vacation. I'm in the moment and I just talk to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a flight attendant, if you're a bartender, if you're an Uber driver, if you're a random person on the subway. I'm that guy that talks to everybody, and my friends hate it and they don't understand.
I love it. Everywhere I go, I go, it is absolutely disgusting. And but the thing is, most of the time, the people with me might be, oh God, here she goes again. Yeah. But the people you interact with, I was at the doctor's office recently picking up something, and there was a lady, and she was in a wheelchair. And anyway, I commented on her hair. We sat and talked. She's legally blind. We sat and talked for I don't know how long, but she was so happy afterward. And she says, you made my day, because everybody else there walked past her, ignored her. She didn't exist. And because I engaged her, it changed. She lit up. And so, you know what? I don't care what anybody says.
Oh, no, I never care what anybody says.
I was high for the rest of the day because I had gotten something from it too. So yeah, but yes, we are absolutely kindred spirit in that regard. Yeah. Don't stop, no matter what.
Absolutely, because it when I do stop, I get depressed.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I realized. Saw a meme earlier today, and it said, "Look what happens to plants when you speak nicely to them. Imagine what would happen to people if you spoke nicely."
Yes. Absolutely.
It's just something so small.
All you do is get out of bed in the morning and make someone else smile. Because I'm a workaholic like you, I will spend many, many, many hours holed away here, and then all of a sudden I start getting that funk and the doubt and all those other things start to creep in. And only thing I might do is go to the grocery store and interact with the clerk. And that's enough. I just have to have that, like you said, the Uber drivers. One of the best reviews I ever got as an Uber driver was a woman said, I got out of the car energized, ready to tackle my day. She said, Dawn's the best, not just as an Uber driver, but just as a person. And I was like, what more can you ask for? If that's all you do is make someone smile, it improves both your lives. So.
And if you think about it, I mean, love is the only currency that's real in this life. Again, I still fall victim to this. I'm in it right now. But money and material items and things, they're fake. They're not real. All of the social and the societal constructs, the programming that we've been designed to think is real and true is not. The only thing real is the relationships you build, the people you influence, the love you show. Yeah. I mean, that is the only real currency. It's the only real language.
Exactly.
So exactly. And as I travel the country, I would just meet random people, and I literally have had many people tell me, like, you changed my life today.
Yes.
Just from this conversation, like the perspective you gave me.
It doesn't take long.
No.
It doesn't have to be. Okay, I have to share this story. And I actually recorded it, and I don't know how many people even listened to it, but I have to share this because I was interviewed by an entrepreneur recently, and he asked me, because he's a civilian, and he asked me, how do we say thank you to veterans if they're not wearing anything, if we can't identify them as veterans? And it stumped me for a minute because I was like, I don't know. And then I suddenly realized, I was like, you know what? That's not the point. The point is be kind to everyone. And then over the course of the conversation, you might learn that they're a veteran. So on that note, the other day I was in Walmart. Now I was in Augusta. I still had to drive to New Smyrna. I'm a very early person. So by this time it was like 1 or 2. I still had a 5-hour drive. I was exhausted, but I was in Walmart, came across this gentleman. We got talking. I won't give you the whole backstory, but over the course of our conversation, I discovered he was a Marine, because you can't talk to me without 5 minutes without finding out that I'm a Marine. So all of a sudden he lights up. He says, Semper Fi, which, I mean, it's, anyway. So we got talking. Long story short, too late for that, I guess. He's a Vietnam era veteran. His wife passed away just a little over a month ago on my birthday.
Wow.
So that little interaction, we stood there and I cried. People were walking past us looking at us like we're nuts, but it was such an amazing connection. We traded phone numbers and email addresses. We've talked since then, but that would have never happened had I, just seen him as some, old man walking down Walmart, not paying attention. I mean, it was a natural interaction for us, and it led to something really amazing. And speaking to the point that neither of us was wearing anything identifying us as veterans, but we were able to really impact and change each other's days and even life in that little bit of time. Rather than me saying, I'm busy, I got to go, I got this long drive, I was actually energized by that. And so that's the point, is that
I don't believe that anybody comes into your life randomly. I believe that I don't believe in coincidences. People have asked me before, like, do you believe in free will? I said, of course I do. And they go, do you believe in destiny? And I said, of course I do. But they're like, how is that possible? You can't have one and the other. I was like, of course you can. Because all right, so the difference between destiny and free will is destiny, those doors, those opportunities are always going to come. And free will is your choice to walk through them.
Right.
And so as the universe aligns itself, as the universe shuffles itself to be able to unfold with what it is you need to be willing to walk through those doors that the universe opens for you to be able to attain the wants that you have. And I use the small example of, I've been really wanting to go to a Lightning game. I mean, I've been living in Tampa now 5 years. I still haven't gone. They're super expensive, and I've been broke the whole time I've been home because I've been grinding,
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, last week, my friend Erica invites me to go with her and her boyfriend to box seats Lightning game, all you can drink, all you can eat. I didn't go because I didn't get the message until it was too late. But the fact is that the opportunity was there, but the free will came into play of me choosing to go and accept that, or for me to let it go. And so that, like, when it comes down to it, I also believe the way we affect other people's lives is exactly what's returned back onto us.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Like attracts like. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're positive and you push positivity out there and you show people love and you show people kindness, you will then get that in return. But a lot of people will say, oh, I don't get that in return. Well, because you have expectations of reciprocity.
Right.
And that's the problem, is that a lot of people, like, I call it the good guy. You have this good guy who do nice things for a woman. He'll be there for her when she needs to talk to somebody. He's usually the friend zoned one. And then all of a sudden, when she doesn't put out and doesn't have sex with him, he's mean and he's bitter and he acts like a fool. Well, I'm like, well, at the end of the day, you weren't actually being kind at the bottom of your heart. You're being kind with an idea of a transactional relationship. If I'm nice to you, you'll have sex with me. Right. And that's the type of, like, demeanor that we have transactional relationships in this life. My buddy, I have a really close friend. His name is Charles Davis III. He was going to be a professional football player, but the same day that he was going to go try out for the Bucks was the same day he had to take this test to pass college. His mother had passed away about a year before that, and in that time, he promised her that he'd get a college degree. So he had to choose between keeping his promise to his mother or chasing what he thought was his dream. He decided to keep his promise to his mother and hasn't looked back since. Since then, now he's a big speaker. He's a public speaker, and he goes around trying to influence kids, and he tries to help kids kind of find the love for themselves, and, like, he's found his purpose in that and being a leader of community. But how he basically explained it to me is that America is a very nice place, but it's all transactional. It's all what you can do for me. And I've noticed that kind of in the business community is Tampa's really great for you to start out if you're an entrepreneur, because there's no barriers to entry and you can get so much help. But it'll get to a certain point where people will only help you if they can get something from you. Right. And that's understandable. It's business. I get it, But
it doesn't have to be.
No, exactly. It doesn't have to be, and that's not how I work. I don't know really how that is. And
no, I do. As we were saying before, you have to trust that we are doing the right thing. And so companies and individuals I listen to so many books, I can't tell you which one it was recently that I heard this, but they talk about how companies and individuals who act that way, the transactional, they can be temporarily successful and maybe fabulously slow, but long term and their legacy, that's my feeling about Facebook. That's my feeling about a lot of these. Yes, you can look at the bottom line money right now, but long term, what are we going to remember about these companies? And they won't last. The companies that last are the ones that they start with their why, and their why is other people. Yep. But I want to go back and say something really quick, because this was a book, speaking to that universe thing, he was talking about, and I'll have to figure out which and try to put in the show notes what book this was, but he was talking about how, the universe has a plan, not necessarily for you, it has a plan, and it will present that plan to you, and you can either take advantage of it and run with it, or it will take that plan to someone else. It will take that. It's going to find the person who is willing to take that plan and run with it and build it and make something of it. So the plans are out there, but like you said, you have to go through the door. It's not that any one person is more lucky or more, and I've said this a million times, you, as you said earlier, you put out happy, you get happy back. You'll go around with that sourpuss face and kicking the curb and being angry and running red lights and flipping people off, then that's what you're going to get back. There's no way, because people who might otherwise want to engage you, want to help you, want to be a part of things, there's no way that they are even able to positively engage with that. So you get back what you put out. So
absolutely, and that's the big thing too. And we also talk a lot about, you know, good and bad. There is obviously things in life that are inherently good and things in life that are inherently bad, but in the end, it's very subjective. I think that we get so caught up, especially in culture today, especially in Western culture today, with these labels. Everybody wants to. Everybody doesn't want to be a label while completely labeling themselves. It's just. I do it all the time as myself. And the words you use dictate the vibrations in which or the frequencies in which you vibrate on. So even when I say something like, oh, I can't remember names. Mm-hmm. Oh, now I'm reinforcing the fact I can't remember names and have a really good opportunity of not doing it. And that's what people don't understand. There is no such thing as a good or bad situation. There just is.
Right.
And it's how you handle that situation. It's how you roll with it. And so, like, this last couple months, I've been really depressed and like really lost on my path. And it was because I was on the wrong path and didn't realize it. Like I had taken an opportunity that I thought was going to help me, and it ended up actually being a detriment to my growth. I wouldn't say a detriment to my growth, not at all, because I grew a lot from it. So it's exactly what I needed to do, and is exactly what needed to happen at this part of my journey and at this part of my life. Because since I was able to highlight what part of my life wasn't working and make an adjustment, everything's starting to like really flow again. I'm happy again. I'm not stressed. I don't have anxiety. I can breathe. I mean, it was bad. We talked about it. We talked about it. And so within the last week, I finally figured out what it was. And I don't regret the last 3 months of my life at all. I don't regret chasing that opportunity because I grew so much from it. It humbled me. It made me more self-aware of the red flags that life will show me, which demonstrates that I'm not on the right path and that I need to adjust. So, you know, from the whole thing, from everything we do, I think people get so hung up on failing. And I think people get so hung up on the bad feelings that they don't see how much lessons there are to be taken that can help you transcend and reach that next level of growth and evolution that will help take you to where it is you're trying to go. Right. And so,
well, as we talked about earlier, the, you know, and as a 52-year-old speaking to a 29-year-old, oh my gosh, when I learned that Adam was born the same year I joined the Marine Corps, that was an eye opener. But you see how, you know, how simpatico, for lack of a better term, our philosophies are. But as someone of my age, speaking to someone of your age, I'm going to tell you right now that you're going to keep going through. Those bad days will come again. Yep. But now you have the knowledge that you'll get through it and you'll be a better person because of it. And
quit.
Oh yeah,
that's the big
absolutely.
thing. There's no quitting now. It's just
right.
I knew the whole time I was going through this point. I mean, I was miserable at some points. I didn't even, you know, it was bad. No, but even at the worst times, I was like, you know what? There's a reason I'm going through this right now. There's a lesson I need to learn, and until I figure that out, I'm not going to get out of this hole. And so I was very aware of it. And so instead of a 3 or 4 month rabbit hole, I was in a 10-week one.
Right.
Which was like a lot, which, hey, you know, it's still it's almost 3 months, but it's not. Right. So it's better. You know, like I said, 1% better.
I want everyone, especially our veterans, and especially, and not just military veterans, our first responders are up too, because they, just like us, they tend to be high, you know, overachievers and very stressful jobs. The one thing, most important thing I want people to take away from this is that, I mean, yesterday, it was just a few hours that I was in the space that you've been in, but while you're in there, it seems like there is no tomorrow. There is no coming out of this. It is just the worst possible thing. How can I am the worst. This is the worst. Everything is the worst. But you do whatever it takes. You reach out to whoever you need to reach out to. You make that connection, even if it's just the store clerk. You make that connection, because tomorrow, it is amazing what 24 hours can do. And, you know, even by the afternoon, but certainly this morning, I got a lot of sleep last night, which is something I don't usually do. I got up this morning just ready to just go after it again. You've got to stick it out for that 24 hours. Put the knife down, put the pills down, put the alcohol and the gun down, put it all down and just reach out, make that connection with someone, because you have something to offer and you can't offer it if you're not here.
Exactly, and the big thing too is with mental health problems. The reason I decided to go with the veteran niche with this is because I'm a veteran and I can relate to veterans.
Yes.
And that's
It's
the
a
way I
story
start. But this is a
to
people
understand.
problem.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
isn't an Eastern culture problem. This isn't a Western culture problem. This isn't
Yes.
a woman problem, a male problem, a Muslim problem, a Christian problem, a black problem, a white problem. This is a people problem. And the reason you see so much hate and discontent in the world right now is because our souls are sick.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I really want to write an article on it. I don't know if I should or not, but I was raised Roman Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
and as I've explored myself, I mean, I knew by 6 years old it was a cult, and I didn't want anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always had a relationship with God, and then when I joined the Marine Corps, I had my heart broken by a young love, and then from there I just was like, I'm a Marine now. I don't need God, and I pushed God out of my life, and it was like the loneliest 8 years of my life. And when I returned back to him, the day I prayed, I was driving down to meet a friend in Sarasota, and I had prayed, God, this was that summer. So this was after all those jobs didn't come through. It was after 2 failed internships. Actually they were successful internships. It was just failure
Right.
in my path. And my buddy goes, Adam, pray. And I go, pray? I don't know how to do that anymore. It's been a decade. I don't know what. He's not going to listen to me anyway. I was like, well, I got nothing else to lose. So I literally said, God, I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't talked to you in a long time. I'm sorry for that. It's been a crazy 8 years, but I really need your help right now. I don't know how long I can last. This isn't sustainable, and I'm scared that I'm going to do something to myself. And 4 days later, he came to me with this idea for Vetting America.
Right.
And so with Vetting America, it started off, I wanted to talk about the mental health problems that veterans are going through, but I wanted to be real with it. And so me and a team of 4 other veterans, we started kind of making videos and pushing a social media campaign around talking about the ups and downs and stuff we're going through as we transition out of the military and try to like find our purpose out here in the real world. Ironically, 3 months later, all of us lose our mind kind of, and then our whole team fell apart. And then I kind of ended up like by myself with doing this thing. It was just, I had a good response from people when I told my story, but kind of taking like a morose negative spin on it, it wasn't really gaining any traction.
Right.
And so what I realized,
you either.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was just reinforcing things.
Right.
And so what I realized is that why not tell? I love entrepreneurship, and I love the veteran community. So that's where I came to be with an entrepreneurship and veteran community, because I think for veterans like you and I think entrepreneurship is what can save our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't be in a corporate setting. I can't be in that structure anymore.
I quit or they fire me.
It's just not going to happen. I'm too opinionated, and I would. Yes,
and
I will tell you when there's a problem.
And I've been told, I just found it so funny because I've been told, you can't follow directions. I'm like, dude, I was a Marine. I am a Marine. I am a Marine.
I'm one walking direction. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So.
Yeah.
Well, tell people you do a lot of writing on Medium. You have the Tampa Post, Vetting America. So tell people all your social channels. Tell them where they can find you, what to expect from you, but where to find you and how to connect with you. And let's start with that first.
All right. So you can find me on Facebook at Adam T. Cummings. You can find me on LinkedIn, Adam T. Cummings. Find me on Instagram at adam.t.c. You can email me at adamtraviscummings.com. Facebook I'm finding my best platform. It's where I make the most connections. Mm-hmm. Ironically, I've tried using them all, but it seems like Facebook is where I get the most traction. So you can just you can shoot me a direct message there. Right now, I spent the last year kind of validating this Vetting America concept, and that's where the whole telling the stories of veteran entrepreneurs came into place, because that gave me an opportunity to show the successes that veterans can have out here, but also with a big emphasis on self-development and how they were able to get out of their own way to create their happiness and success out in the civilian world. So that's what the kind of stories I wanted to say. So if any of you have a story that you think is worth telling, and if you have a veteran organization or resource that you would like to highlight and talk about, direct message me, email me, find me wherever. I'm hoping that within 2019, I can start landing some sponsors. I want to build a team around it, and then I'm going to start taking it nationally. So my goal is to create a web television series that's sort of like Dirty Jobs, but for veteran organizations and resources, where I go to those veteran organizations and resources with a film crew, spend a day or two with them and show the world what they do, how they do it, why they do it, where the money comes from, and how they spend it. And I'm literally vetting these resources for people. So not only do they know about it, but then these resources have content that they can draw more donors and more support from. And so that's kind of like my vision for it moving into 2019. I'm very excited.
I am so excited for you. I'm so excited that you've found this passion at such a young age. It took me a long time to figure out. I had to go through all of those stumbling blocks to figure out what I could do best in the world. So on that note, I'm going to close out with my little, for lack of a better term, gimmick. But we have Verimour, and you vaguely know this, although we didn't talk about it. Since you and since I was on your show, at that time, we were trying to be kind of all things to all people. And Verimour was not only a dating app, but it was also a friend profile. And we were trying to target veterans. And it was getting too confusing for people. So in answer to that confusion, what we did is we've split off and we've created a separate working on creating an entirely separate product called Hero Harbor. And it's looking at connecting. It's the same mission always, but this one is just focused on connecting people like you and I, people who have been there, both veterans, both active, as I said before, first responders, that sort of thing. But one of the little things that we do in Verimour and in Hero Harbor to help people make a connection is something called conversation starters. So my last question to you is going to be a conversation starter. And this one's a pretty simple one. What would you like written on your tombstone?
That's a good one. I never had that question asked me before.
And it's not something we think about because
No, because I don't think about dying because I'm invincible.
So the one right
Marine.
under it is
No, here. Basically, what I would want to say on my tombstone is I would want here lies a man who gave life his all, who impacted people and created a life that others can emulate.
So in other words, you need a monument.
How would it? Yeah, like a Rocky statue in the middle of.
But I love it. No, and the thing is, I have no doubt that all of that will absolutely be true. You have got great things ahead of you, and I sincerely hope to be a part of it. So thank you for spending this time with me. And of course, you always know where to find me, but we will talk to you soon. Oh, and happy birthday. Saturday is our joint Marine Corps birthday. Hoorah. So, all right.
I'm excited.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I had a great time. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for spending this time with us. If you enjoyed the content we shared with you, please subscribe, review, and share this show with your friends. Verimour, the dating app, and Hero Harbor, the social connection tool for heroes, are both in the app stores. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as Verimour, Verimour_app, or Hero Harbor.